So, how would you make a sci-fi or role-playing game setting feel like Rick and Morty? Other than swearing, nihilism, abrupt and gory violence, and occasional alcohol-induced belching. Whether writing a story or planning to run a crazy RPG with your friends, you can create an insane multiverse like that of Rick and Morty, as long as your protagonists have some way to get around. Whether a portal gun, TARDIS, magical plane shift spells or portals, or some other mechanism. Even your standard starship headed where no man has gone before, it's not uncommon in sci-fi or fantasy to be able to explore many wildly varying worlds, dimensions, or whatever.
Hold up, are you comparing Star Trek to Rick and Morty?
No, wait, Stuart from the loading crew? How'd you get in here?
You mean, other than putting you in my top 10 D&D YouTubers list? I mean, quantum something, I don't know. But what you're describing sounds like Starjammer, Sliders, or even Doctor Who. But none of those stories necessarily feel like Justin Roiland or Dan Harmon's particular brand of insanity. So how do you make your game feel like Rick and Morty?
Well, a lot of twisted genius goes into this show, but I think when you really boil it down, there are two main aspects which you need to capture in order to approximate that Rick and Morty feel in your fictional worlds: infinity and mundanity. The way I see it, there are two main implications of a story having access to an infinite number of individually near-endless universes: the big differences and the small ones. Let's call the Earth we know World Zero, as in zero difference from our Earth, and place it on that most exciting of charts, a number line.
Wow, your graphics department really went all out.
I don't have a graphics department.
Ah, that would explain it.
The big differences mean this number line stretches out to infinity in either direction, including dimensions and worlds that are totally unrecognizable to us as it stretches into the billions, trillions, trillions of trillions of trillions. So far in the series, Rick seems to stick to dimensions whose physics are very close to our own.
Not counting the blender dimension.
But even if "in this house we obey the laws of thermodynamics," we still see crazy worlds that make no sense to us, truly alien environments to explore and survive. After a few episodes, you wouldn't blink an eye at a world where molten geysers shoot up hundreds of feet into the air, hardening instantly into great crystal spires, only for three-armed aliens to float up on a zeppelin, chop off the very top point of the spire and throw it into a rusty bucket, while the damage causes enough instability that the remainder of the spire collapses in on itself, splashing back down into the boiling surface of the planet.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Donut-shaped worlds with black hole cores, extra-dimensional arcades, even a wildlife preserve where you hunt the deadliest game, your own selves from less fortunate dimensions.
None of these things would feel out of place in the infinity of the multiverse. The weirder, the better. But there are also small differences. The infinite number of worlds and universes between 0 and 1 on that same number line. And infinitely more still, between 0 and 0.01. Every imaginable permutation of our familiar world. From an Earth where JFK wasn't shot, to an Earth where Einstein was. From the many Earths where Nazis conquered Europe, to the few where the indigenous peoples of North or South America conquered it first in the 1700s.
Obviously, our imaginations aren't quite that unlimited, but anyone should be able to dig up a few good world ideas out of the many realities that you've seen in other fiction, or to brainstorm counterfactuals while watching history documentaries.
Remember, whenever there's a freak occurrence or seemingly unlikely outcome in history, you can just extrapolate how the world may have turned out if events went the other way. Imagine if the world just couldn't agree to do anything about the ozone hole, never banned CFCs, and by 2020 people in Canada and northern states needed protective gear to walk outside without getting skin cancer. You should be able to come up with some fun ones on your own, and remember, they don't have to be that original, and they don't have to make that much sense.
In fact, making too much sense may hurt the Rick and Morty vibe that you're trying to achieve.
If you were planning to run an RPG like this, you should start by making a list of your world, dimension, or timeline ideas, and make sure to add to it whenever something crosses your mind. Don't worry if they're good ideas. You can always trim them down later. But once you have some ideas, you can start breaking them down into tables and figuring out the sort of setting you want to have. A Star Trek type single universe exploration might not be the right place for alternate Earths.
Like Cowboy World, or Greek World, or Mobster World, or Nazi World?
I stand by my statement, but you can throw in all kinds of crazy worlds, aliens, technologies, etc. And if you do want Cowboy Earth or Gangster Earth, Theater of the Mind has no budget. And just make them weird aliens who look totally different but act like Space Lincoln or whatever. On the other hand, if you want a single planet or even single city infinite worlds story, you can set aside all those donut worlds and aliens and focus on the many different ways that Earth history could have turned out.
Or Faerun, Hogwarts, or whatever.
And break that down further into tables of governments or technology levels or religions or whatever aspects of humanity you want to play around with. That way, whenever and however they dimension shift, you can either roll on multiple tables to get entirely different worlds, like jumping from a communist ballet-obsessed society to a cowboy-inspired world where the indigenous people have the guns and the colonizers don't, or you can just roll on a single table for each jump, changing just that one axis to get the kind of marathon planar chase where each world is just a slight variation of the last. Jump from fascist Christian Earth to fascist Muslim Earth to fascist atheist Earth to fascist Buddhist Earth.
When did fascism become the default?
Or maybe you get trapped in a series of worlds where the vampires have taken over, and as you try to jump away to a non-vampire world, you end up in vampire Prohibition-era society, then vampire 80s-style Cold War, then vampire cyberpunk technocracy, and escape that only to land in the horror of vampire-ruled, vampire wannabe capitalist culture. Just hot topic as far as the eye can see.
Does Hot Topic still exist for you? I'm recording this in the corporate oligarchy where Hot Topic still exists.
Weirdly, yes. I'm going to put up a spreadsheet full of my own charts on Google Docs, link in the description, but that's still just a starting point. Half the fun is coming up with your own crazy, and hopefully non-racist, random world charts.
Now, when you said infinity, I thought, yeah, of course, but mundanity? Is that even a word?
Mundanity may be a little less intuitive, but if you want your story or role-playing game to really feel like Rick and Morty, you're going to have to find the mundane in the exceptional, and the exceptional in the mundane. One of the things that makes the bizarre and often illogical universe of the show feel grounded, feel familiar, is that whatever wonders we witness through Morty's eyes, there is always a buzzkill, usually Rick, who sees them as ordinary, utilitarian, overhyped, or even as a sham, just something shiny to distract the masses. Now, you probably don't literally have Rick running with your protagonists to crush their dreams, but you can create this jarring yet grounding effect by working in seemingly incongruous elements of everyday Earth life. Humans or aliens in any job, however amazing, tend to adjust to their new normal. Whether space mining unobtainium by reflecting lasers between asteroids, or operating the teleporters on a starship, or performing hollow orthoscopic surgery in an interdimensional interspecies operating room. There may be someone enthusiastic about their career, but there's always a coworker who is tired of the grind, or who always gets stuck driving the mining shuttle with the broken armrest, or who can't stop bitching about their relationship troubles, or who never wanted this job because they dreamed of a career in square dancing.
They thought that square dancing was a career? That's so sad, unless you live in the square dancing dimension, and even then, only the very best square dancers can make a living, because all these squares make a circle.
For this aspect, for injecting the mundane, complaints and bureaucracy are probably your main weapons. Not that they should overwhelm your story, but just introducing these elements here and there can help defy expectations to relieve or even increase dramatic tension. Are the heroes looking doomed, pinned down by the explosive plasma blasts of a squad of cyber gators? This is a perfect time for one of the gators to accuse another one of stealing her lunch from the fridge in the ship's break room.
My name was barcoded right on it, you thief!
Oh yeah, well maybe I just couldn't stand the thought of watching you mow down an egg salad like a garbage disposal.
My mouth is a garbage disposal. It's not my fault I was built this way.
As the incoming fire slackens, can they use this chance to turn the tables? On the other hand, if the mission went too smoothly and they're all set to be beamed up by their new bargain basement Starfleet allies, Spotty, the transporter chief, refuses.
I cannot do that, Captain. You haven't submitted the bioclearance for these life forms.
We don't have time, Spotty. Beam us up now.
According to the regulations, no bioclearance, no beaming. Otherwise, Who knows how their gut flora will react?
Now they have to choose between swallowing some very harsh bidirectional laxatives to clearance their systems, or if they can get the captain to overrule Spotty, they may find themselves with a bad case of E. coli chestbursters.
Their chests, if they're lucky.
You can also appeal to the mundanity to pierce your protagonist's bubble by showing that their murder hobo behavior is affecting ordinary people who happen to work part-time for the evil empire to pay off their student loans.
Oh God, you killed Karen! We just work here, you rebel psychos! And it's not just shattering expectations and wacky, out-of-this-world scenes. You can try to do the reverse as well, flipping the mundane on its head. When traveling a relatively tame alternate Earth, or at least when it seems tame in that particular place and time, you can be thinking of ways to totally freak them out with different societal norms or weird technological or supernatural twists that weren't immediately obvious. Imagine, after a series of hellish adventures, they found a perfectly normal and hospitable version of Earth, where the only difference they can see is that Elvis got the help and treatment he needed, kept performing until he retired at 55, and is now holding his second comeback tour at the age of 82. No dinosaurs, no vampires, no Nazis, or at least no more than the normal amount of Nazis. Finally a chance to relax. Do they find that A, the coffee bean was wiped out by a virus, and everyone drinks either tea or Mountain Dew? B, all drugs were legalized in the US, and if anything, usage is down because they don't seem exciting anymore, and rehab is covered by health insurance. C, in this world, climate change actually was a hoax, dreamed up by scientists just so they could appear on TV? Or D, all of the above?
The correct answer is A. It couldn't be all of the above because even Rick has yet to find a dimension where C is true.
Then, after a few pleasant, if coffee-free, hours, one of the other humans says something about getting a new body. And your protagonists realize that in this world, human intelligence was wiped out when that coffee bean virus jumped to Homo sapiens, became sentient itself, and all human bodies are just viral meat suits, who are now getting suspicious because you reacted as if that were not completely normal?
Your system sounds wild, dude, but very Rick and Morty.
Well, the charts are just basic stuff to get you started, to get you into the right mindset. A large part of the fun is coming up with your own bizarre and wildly varying environments, weirdly familiar, disconcerting alternate Earths, and uncomfortable or off-putting societies or twists. If you have some good ideas, you can share them in the comments. And if you want to see how I apply some more consistent fantasy world building in my own long-running illustrated series, check out Tales from My D&D Campaign.
Or if you want a window into the psychology of the characters who spend all their time jumping through this bizarre multiverse, I've created a video called What D&D Alignment is Rick. But Demonac and I have also just done a collaboration video following up on his grandson Morty in the events of Season 4.
Well, the first 5 episodes anyway. See you there. My channel is completely supported by patrons, including the far too generous members of the organization.